Karikumtima and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality. For more information, visit our website www.karikumtima.com.
Hello viewers, we once again welcome you to the Karikumtima and Company Advocates podcast. I am your moderator Maxwell Ochaya. I'll be assisted by Mr. Alfred Muyaka. And today on set we have none other than Mr. Karikumtima Deo. And the program today is that we shall be taking further recap on the events that transpired at UNAA, particularly in relations to land discussion. Today we shall be talking majorly about land fraud in Uganda. We take this opportunity to welcome our viewers in the diaspora, particularly those in America and Canada. You are so much welcome to this program. Without further much ado, allow me welcome Mr. Muyaka Alfred to say hello to the viewers. Then later on, we shall have Mr. Karikumtima Deo to take on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to those who joined us in our last discussion, where we discussed several issues, at least regarding land management, sustainable development, and due diligence on land transactions. We basically captured due diligence briefly, and when you look at due diligence, salient part Uganda due diligence to avoid fraud, and this is the reason why in this discussion we are having further discussion on land fraud, capture it in detail, because we know our due diligence, we do it to avoid due fraud, and we'll be hosting none other than Council Deo to further dig deep into land fraud, the benefit of all of us. Thank you.
Before Council Deo comes on set, this program shall run till 8:30 EAT. We shall spare the first 40 minutes for Council Deo to take us through, due diligence and further proving of fraud in land matters in Uganda. After the first 40 minutes, we shall expect and invite questions from the viewers who shall send in their questions directly under the chat, and we shall respond to them immediately. At this opportune moment, Mr. Karikumtima Deo, you're welcome to say hello and begin the discussion to our viewers.
Hello viewers, to my beloved UNAA family, fellow countrymen and women wherever you are. Warm regards from motherland. It's raining pretty heavily. I will later on talk extensively about rains and floods, but we are honored and humbled to be here. And today we have a surprise for you. We have a surprise guest. I do not know whether he's online yet, but he will be taking in most of the questions today. Today I'm not taking the bullets. It's a Friday. You can tell I'm in a very relaxed mood. I'm actually the guy in charge of entertainment today. There's an important guest who's going to be logging in, who will be taking most of your questions. But briefly, just by way of a recap, and I must note, this is not an academic session. For those of us who are here for academics, someone was asking about papers. Yes, papers have been written about land fraud. They are available online. Personally, I have a couple. They are available on our website. But today it's a Friday. It's not about academics. We are going practical. Land issues. I did note in Dallas and on many fora and in the last recap that land is a delicate commodity, a very intricate subject. The land issues emanate way back from the biblical times. I'm not going to go through scripture today, but may God bless you all. We have international strife over land. We all know what is happening between Israel and Palestine right now. I'm not an authority on international law or international humanitarian law, but we are all alive to the reality. Let's not kid ourselves. We know this is about territory. So land can be a very small issue, but it can also be projected. Now today we are not going to talk about territorial disputes. We are going to talk about omuntu wa bulijjo, the ordinary Ugandan. I know many of you are not ordinary, but I'm sure you get the point that we are putting across. What do you need to do as a citizen to protect your interest? Like I said, land is a delicate commodity. Land is a very important asset. How do you handle it? Land is not like a fruit or a vegetable in the market where you do not know the seller. A wise judge once said. But you see, like I told you the last time, I actually know the guy in the market who sells me vegetables and fruits. We relate, we have a relationship. So how are you going to handle this very important aspect? In the series, the next series that we're going to have, this is series 2, I believe, Maxwell?
Yes,
Alfred,
yes.
this is series 2.
Yes.
We're going to have more series, and we are going to break down each of these components. We'll have one talking about sustainability, one about due diligence, one about remedies. What happens if your land has been grabbed or stolen? We shall break it down to the detail. We are going to be inviting several guests from Ministry of Lands, Ministry of Water, the different authorities. We'll break it down to the detail. Today is just a summation. And Maxwell, I'm sorry, I don't need 40 minutes. It's a Friday. I need to rest. I've had a long week. So I'm just going to do a couple of minutes. Today should be a more interactive session. We need to interact with our dear viewers. We hear from them. Like I said, it's going to be practical. So I'll briefly touch what we touched the last time, due diligence, sustainability, compliance, and the need for information. I'll start with information. I would like to thank Kalikum Team and Company Advocates for allowing me and the team here go on a mission. Our mission is to fill the information gap. Yes, many of you are taken advantage of because you lack the right information. I remember a sad moment for me in Chicago at one of the conventions where a lady was asking me whether stamp duty is still 10%. Now, stamp duty is a levy that you pay when you're transferring land. Currently, when you're transferring land, and I'll quickly, before I sum up, take us through some processes, land transfer, subdivision, and these processes are also available online, Ministry of Lands website. There's an important guest who will also be available to take some of those questions. What do you do in these scenarios? Now, to transfer land, you pay a levy to the government of Uganda, and it is only 1.5%. But this innocent Ugandan, hard-toiling Ugandan, thought that the levy is 10%. Because you are very busy people, and this is not just to folks in the diaspora, but even our countrymen here in Uganda. You're very busy people. You don't have time to interest yourselves in transactions. You don't. And people are taking advantage of this. Fraudsters are taking advantage of this. I'll give you an example. This is the social media age. We have so many influencers, I was on social media recently and there was a young man. I was so touched, very happy. We need to support the youth. And he's a realtor talking about real estate and an expert. Now, to become an expert, it's a bit of a process. But we must guide the young people where they have passion. We must guide them in the right discussion. Let me use the opportunity to thank the Cabinet of Uganda. The real estate laws are going to be in place soon. We have a bill. Deliberations are still ongoing. I'll not speak on behalf of the ministry, on behalf of government, but this is public information. This will guide the sector. Now, you have young people out there who are selling properties. We have fraudsters who are selling properties, different categories. When you're trading, you need to trade carefully. You need to trade carefully. You don't have time. Our dear countrymen, you come to Uganda for 2 weeks, and your beloved, especially your relatives, I have nothing against them. I told you this before, but they take advantage of you. You come in 2 weeks, doing a project, $1 million. I'm buying this structure, it's $1 million, but I don't have time, They are going to take advantage of that ignorance of the short time span that you have in the country to cheat you. That is why we went on a mission to empower you with information. No one is paying us to do this, and we don't need to be paid. It is our calling to serve. I always tell people profoundly, we are a Christian farm. I'm a believer, and it is my calling to serve. It is our calling to serve. That is why we are here, to fill the information void, so that you're not taken advantage of. I can assure you that information, knowledge is power. With the right information, fraud will be mitigated to a reasonable extent. I'm not going to give too many statistics here and percentages, but I want to assure you it is going to be mitigated to a reasonable extent once you have the right information. And still related to information, I must insist, kindly, please engage professionals. Okay? Leave the loved ones to parties and functions. You can send them money for functions. If these relatives are professionals, well and good, then you can engage. Like I said, this is an important asset. How do we deal with it? Engage an attorney. We are registered. There's a fallback position for you. You have the Law Council of Uganda that handles our disciplinary issues. Any reasonable firm today should have professional indemnity. If for any reason, unfortunate coincidence, there is professional negligence, you call on the PI, the professional indemnity. That gives you a cover. Talking about land, you can't talk about land without talking about surveyors. Abapunta. We need these surveyors, but please deal with registered surveyors. There is a board, that the Surveyors Registration Board of Uganda, that registers them, that handles their ethical and professional issues. We have many people holding out as surveyors. No offense to anybody out there, but I believe we ought to respect professionals. We ought to respect professionals. There's a reason why they went to school. There's a reason why they amassed this experience, and this reason is service. Allow them serve you. Still, for surveyors, if there is any issue, there's a fallback position. Similarly, we have engineers, we have architects. There is a registration board for that. Again, to a reasonable extent, this will mitigate fraud. Now, you come in 1 week, deal. Nothing against dealers. For as long as you're dealing the right way, that is okay. But someone comes in 2-3 days, deal, this is what I must do. That's how you're going to lose that money pretty fast. Imagine you're buying an apartment block. Your dear relative, even if they are lawyers, even if they are surveyors, let us look for people who are meaningful. Any meaningful professional should give you a work plan and a budget. It doesn't have to be detailed in 20 or 100 pages. No. Let them give you a work plan on how they are going to execute your project. Professional X, in quotes, tells you, let us do a search. Now, that search statement, a friend will talk to you soon. At the bottom has a disclaimer. We do not guarantee the authenticity of this information. There is a reason why that statement is there. Now, this realtor or profession in quotes is telling you, buy this apartment. This is the deal. This is the real deal. This is the hot deal. You must do. And you fall for it. 1 year down the road, the building is developing cracks. Oh, now what do we do? We need to sue. When you do elaborate or detailed due diligence and engage the right professionals, fine, a search will be done, so you'll get your search statement. But you'll also engage a competent surveyor, registered, to go to the ground, ascertain the boundaries, ascertain the acreage, interact with the neighbors. It is not enough to talk to LC. A colleague was saying, no, you due diligence, you can't talk to LC. No, it is not. These people even change. They are not permanent. Fine, neighbors are not permanent too. That's why we stretch the test for due diligence today. It is no longer the academic version that is in the what? In the books. The surveyors will give you a report and confirm, yes, this is a piece of land. It is in sync with what is on the title and what is reflected on the search. And now we are using a classical of buying an apartment. You need to engage a civil engineer. You need to engage an architect. You need to engage a mechanical engineer. Now, please note, mechanical engineers are not just restricted to motor vehicles and generators. Issues of plumbing are also handled by them. There is also the electrical component. After 1 year, the building is burning down. Recently, there's a structure that collapsed somewhere. I'm not going to belabor to talk about it so much. It was all over the news. The last time I talked about frogs and snakes, people were castigating me because I talked about wetlands. So I'm not going to talk about that building. But believe me, for the wetlands, I'm back. I'm going to talk about them. Unfortunately, I forgot to get a mask of a gorilla. I had promised Maxwell here and Alfred that I would put it on. That structure collapsed. Now imagine you have rushed in and bought the structure. Now back to the big project. After 1 year, it is developing cracks. Do you know why? There's an issue with the structural integrity. Who's going to assess that for you if you don't engage the civil engineer, if you don't engage the architect? The building is burning down. If you had engaged an electrical engineer, that would save you your money. We have the desire to invest. And I thank God that Uganda still has opportunities to invest. Let nobody scare you away that you cannot invest in Uganda. Uganda is, no. These are challenges. Every country where you are, there are challenges. I'm not going to go into them. Every country has its challenges. We have our own. And I want to assure you these fraudsters are not sophisticated. They are not as sophisticated as you think they are. No, they are not. They are not. You just need to revise the way you do your business. Okay? Now, I'll talk about the issue of compliance. And with compliance, I'll restrict myself to just one item, leases. A lease can be issued by an individual. A lease is a contract for a fixed period of time. It can be for initial term, 5 years, 49, 99. It can be issued by a district land board. It can be issued by Uganda Land Commission. It can be issued by Kingdom land boards. Now, a classic example of Uganda, with the 1900 Uganda Agreement, we had 2 estates created. If you have time, look at article, it should be article 15, and the schedule there too. We have the official estate and the private estate. The official estate was for the office, like the office of the Katikiro, the office of the Mwanika, the Kabaka of Buganda. Then we have the personal estates. Now, if you are dealing in the official estate, today the official estate is managed by Uganda Land Board. I'll not overstretch, but if the kingdom gives you a lease, if you want to own a registered interest on Kabaka's land, the kingdom must give you a lease. There's a whole process. We shall also have a session where we'll go in detail. They give you a lease for a specific period of time, and the lease, being a contract, of course, has covenants. It has terms that you must comply with. A district land board, for example, Kampala, can give you a lease for a specified period of time. One of the key covenants is development. Now, many a times our dear friends will buy a piece of land, will apply for a lease, get it from the district land board, have their title, even seal it. I'm going to talk about sealing titles. That is not a proper way of managing those documents. Once you seal it, no entry can be made. Hence, you will have to apply for a special certificate. But I'll go into that later. Seal it and hang it somewhere. They will never develop the piece of land. Now, remember, being a contract, you're supposed to comply with the terms. This is another area that we have noted is grossly abused by fraudsters. They literally identify properties, especially here in Kampala. They will know. Person X is not around, absentee landlord. Then somehow they will dig up, investigate. Maybe you have not even paid the ground rent, non-compliance. Now, once this lease expires, you become a tenant at sufferance. The lease reverts back to the controlling authority. I will quickly go and apply for that piece of land. But even where you have complied, be keen enough, develop your properties fully, have security there, do periodic searches. Twice a year, you don't lose anything. I will not speak on behalf of Minister of Lands, but when we were in Dallas, we had Mr. Lenin there. He informed you that the system has been over time updated, digitized, and now you'll be able to access this information on a portal. So from your home or your office, you'll be able to do a real-time search. Um, Soonest or in the near future, we'll invite staff of Ministry of Lands. We'll have a session with them. You'll get to interact with them. Now, complying with terms of a lease is part of compliance. You pay the premium, the official fees. You pay the ground rent, pay the property rates, develop the property, get an occupation permit, lock off all the gaps that can be taken advantage of. This is, like I said, another area that is grossly abused. And once you comply, you help in mitigating fraud. I'll talk about sustainability. Yes, to my dear friends, and I mean friends in quotes. I sit at Colin House. I'm not hiding. Ground floor. You are not a frog or a snake to be in a forest. You're not a baboon. You're not a chimpanzee. You're not a monkey to be in a forest. I thank God that before independence, the president of Uganda, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, was addressing the nation. Number 8, he talked about wetlands, he talked about forest reserves. These form what we call protected areas. There is a reason why they are called protected areas. Now, I told you it is raining heavily here. Someone told me, you're not a physical planner, you shouldn't even be commenting about flooding, you don't know. Some of these things you just need to use a bit of common sense. If you cut down forests, build in wetlands, you're building in the reserves, and you complain about floods, okay, fine, we are going to blame God and the devil and climate change and global warming for everything, I guess. But for the things that we can control, I humbly request, as citizens, we have a duty. Let us control. Under the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, to be precise, Article 26, every citizen has a right to own property. But you see, with the right comes an attendant duty, a corresponding duty. You can own your property, that is okay, whether you're a general, you can own. But let us be diligent. Let us be mindful of continuity. I'm not going to go back into history, but we are at a moment where we are alive to the fact that there has to be sustainability in everything, especially environmental sustainability. I will not talk about political sustainability. There has to be continuity. How we manage our resources, especially our natural resources, is very important. These forests help capture carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases. Once emitted, it traps heat in the atmosphere. Hence you have the global warming, hence you have the climate change. You have floods in Singapore, you have floods in Libya, you have... Now, there are certain things that we can't control. We may not be able to control what is happening in the Philippines, what is happening in Singapore, the Chinese are building on the ocean. For as long as we tamper with nature, nature will respond. Please take note. In good time, nature will respond. So as citizens, we have a duty to protect the environment for our sake, for the sake of our children, for the sake of our great-grandchildren, for the sake of our neighbors. It is inevitable we must deal with this reality. Maxwell and Alfred, I believe my 20 minutes are up. It is supposed to be interactive. Ivan, is my guest there yet? Are you seeing him online? Not yet. Mr. Baker. He's not yet there. He will be joining us. So, I think it is time to hand you back to the viewers. Take it on from here. But feel free to chip in. I will, at a time, I promise to talk about land processes, the process of land transfer, the process of acquisition of a lease, the process of subdivision. I will, but I don't want this to get boring. It's a Friday. It should be interactive. So back to you guys. Take it on from here.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. You are almost clocking the 40 minutes, actually. Viewers, you have heard, and my take home here once again. Okay, we shall come to the question. My take home here once again is always and always engage registered professionals, lawyers, surveyors, and all those ones who matter in land transactions. Engage registered surveyors. At this point, allow me bring Alfred on board. We have a few questions from the chat.
Yeah, thank you for those who have joined us. So from Council those discussions, my take homes as in filling the information gap. Be aware of what is happening. Don't let anyone to cheat you. We have seen issues of stamp duty which is paid in transaction when transferring land 1.5%, and instead of you pay 10% because you're dealing with a person who is not a registered professional, because no professional could charge you to that extent. And there are indeed consequences of not dealing with registered professionals. For example, if you deal with a person who is not a registered surveyor, and later on the issue goes to court, that report made by a person who is not a registered surveyor will not be admitted as evidence in court when you have issues over that land matter. And then as the aspect of not leaving forest reserves, wetlands, and what, basically not buying land in protected areas, because either way, no matter how long it will take, you have to face the consequences. Recently, News read an article where a businessman had acquired 178 acres of land in Mavera Forest Reserve, and those titles were cancelled. So, as you transact in land, be sure not to buy land in a protected area. Do all the diligence you need to make sure that you're not buying land which is in a protected area. Someone may have got a certificate of title without knowing, or fraudulently, and for you, you think because there's a certificate of title, you are good to go. You go further and verify whether the land is not in a protected area. That can be done by conducting a survey and dealing with a chartered surveyor. And these are people at least you need to avoid even doing desk surveys. That surveyor should go reach the land and really survey it physically. Even if it needs going with him or her, you should go with him. So, there are some questions. Someone asked some questions in the chat. I don't know.
Ivan?
Does he need a mic to ask his or her question, or? I think there is none. With regards to the lease, you see, a lease comes with an agreement, and there are terms of each lease agreement. So once you have acquired the lease from any authority, either this land board, or even if an individual has given you a lease, make sure that you comply with those lease terms. You don't just get the lease agreement and sit back with it without complying with it. You keep refining the lease agreement and make sure you're complying with the developments. If you are according to the document, you're supposed to have built something by a certain date, you have complied. Payment of we have paid all the required fees and everything. Don't just sit back. Then when transacting, council has really guided, land is not a vegetable which you can buy from any unknown market vendor there. So when you are really buying land, make sure you know the person you're buying the land from, because even people who buy vegetables from a market, with time you get to know the person you're buying from that vegetable or what. So those are the takeaways. We can continue with the discussion.
Thank you so much, Alfred. We really appreciate throwing in more lights to Council Dale's discussion. Now, one thing that Alfred, I think, missed to mention is that due diligence, as Council Dale earlier on stretched, does not only stop at the neighbors or the LC or even at the registry. It stretches far beyond. These days, people are buying land on road reserves. These are things you must, take into consideration. And I believe later on he will still throw much more lights on that. Council Deo, at this particular point, we are still expecting questions from the viewers. Please send in your questions. We are ready to answer them. Earlier on, Mr. Kalikumutima, you talked about sealing of titles. What exactly do you mean by sealing of titles? And what effect does this sealing have on these titles? Because you mentioned that once a title is sealed, one would need to, require that person again to apply for a special certificate of title. First, what is a special certificate of title? What is sealing, and how does sealing affect titling, in these matters?
Allow me clarify one thing. What I meant by sealing is actually laminating. You will excuse me. Titles are actually supposed to be sealed, and indeed they are, by Ministry of Lands. A seal is a mark for authentication purposes, that this title is authentic. So there's nothing wrong with the seal unless the seal is forged. So allow me clarify, Maxwell, that it is lamination that is a problem. When you laminate that title, you're not able to make any subsequent entries. If I transfer the title to you or to Alfred, the title's office will not be able to make that entry. If you want to safeguard your title, please keep it in a safe at home. Keep it with an attorney. Keep it in the bank. Or for some of you who believe so much in your churches, I'll not talk about so much about churches. I'll not go there. But I said I'm a believer. But if you believe so much in your churches, you can keep your titles there. It is okay. But you laminating that title means no other entry made.
Can be done.
Now, under the law, you will then be required to apply to the title's office for a special certificate of title. A special certificate of title is issued if the owner's copy is lost, obliterated, damaged, destroyed. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, when you laminate, you have destroyed the title, because you cannot have the subsequent dealings registered thereon. You would then have to apply to the title's office. Fortunately, the title's office is a bit understanding. I believe in certain exceptional circumstances, they even waive the notice period. Ordinarily, if you lose your title, you go for identification. You apply by way of letter. You attach a statutory declaration declaring or confirming the facts touching the loss. You will attach a police report to confirm that indeed the title is lost. And if you please, you can even attach an LC letter confirming that you indeed reside in that area as confirmed by the local authorities. Submit your application to the title's office after payment of the official fees, of course. Now, when it is lodged, there is an identification session to confirm that you're indeed the owner, the declarant therein. Then, once satisfied, the title's office will issue a notice, which notice you in turn advertise in the Gazette. Yes. Why does it go to the Uganda Gazette? In the future also we'll have an important friend from UPPC, yes, that is in charge of the Gazettes, where we advertise officially. So the whole world is put on notice that Maxwell misplaced his title. After the statutory period, 30 days, you go back to the title's office with the Gazette, and your title is issued. Yes. Now, with the titles that have been laminated, that notice requirement is waived at the discretion of the registrar of titles. Maybe when I'm touching fraud a little more, I'll talk about special certificates of title, because this is an area that is grossly abused by fraudsters. And since you have given me the opportunity, in my village, when you give us opportunity, we talk about so many things. I'm not in my village, but I should give us very important statistics that I got from a wonderful gentleman that will interview in the future. In 1900, Uganda had a population of 2 million Ugandans. Yes. Today, we are 48 plus million. Uganda has a total area of 240 square kilometers. Each square kilometer has 247 acres. Statistically speaking, every Ugandan can own at least an acre today. But allow me also quickly note, and this was said by, is it Mark Twain or something?
Yes, Mark Twain.
Yeah. Land is not manufactured. We don't have a small factory that is manufacturing land. Land indeed is an important asset. It may be, or it is, the only asset that does not depreciate in what? In value.
Yes.
But land is no longer manufactured. It was manufactured once by God. Now, for those of you who believe in other things, that is up to you. So, for me, I believe God is the one who created earth and manufactured the land. So, it is no longer being manufactured. So, what do? We were talking about sustainability, talking about the resources. How do we manage them to ensure that continuity? Back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalekumutima Deo. You're not yet off. You're the expert on the show, and
My guest has refused to come.
you're the expert on the show, and we still have questions coming your way, because you know people really would love to benefit from your intellect as far as you know land matters are concerned. And one question coming in is that how does someone identify, you know, a fake, you know, professional? You earlier mentioned that people need to deal with registered surveyors, licensed lawyers or advocates, you know, civil engineers. We understand that, you know, all these professionals have one central body that regulates them and licenses them. But how can someone identify, you know, that this is a fake professional or, you know, this is a genuine one? Do these people need to ask for their certificates of registrations, of licensing, or ordinarily, just from, you know, the face of it, how can I tell that, you know, what are those tips that, you know, you could give us that can guide us to identify that, you know, just by mere looking at someone that raises question marks, whether this person is, you know, authentic or, you know, one of those masqueraders that we have today?
Maxwell, you look at them and they have it brandished on their foreheads that they have. No. Now, jokes aside, we are living in the 21st century. Before you ask them for their documentation, we have websites. Go to these sites, check. If it is a lawyer, Uganda Law Society has a website. Ministry of Justice has where they publish all the licensed law firms and all the practicing advocates for a given period. We have approval of chambers that is done by law council. All these are clearly listed, so you can check there. Similarly, the Surveyors Registration Board also publishes their lists. Similarly, the Engineers Registration Board does the same. So before you even start asking for documentation, you know, we are living in interesting times. And you are aware that emergency situations call for emergency measures.
True.
You're doing due diligence for the property that you want to buy. Now we are also telling you to do due diligence about the professional. Yeah, it is necessary. Because like I told you, it doesn't make sense for me for you to come here in a couple of days, invest $1 million, and you're not willing to spend even 1 shilling on a professional. Take off time, inquire about the professionals. Check these sites, and when you approach them, I don't know about my colleagues. For me, if you approach me and you ask me for my license, practicing license, a copy, if I'm sure about the purpose that you want it for, because I'll not just give it to you, I will surely, in the very least, show you that I'm duly licensed to operate in 2023, that my law firm has been approved for this year. And I will show you my professional indemnity. I will say I'm insured by this insurance company to a tune of this. So just in case anything happens, you are covered. So this information is available.
Yes.
I know time, and again, there are some red flags. Deal, hot, very fast. Question mark. These sweet things that come hot and fast end up bitter. When the deal is too hot and too fast, be very careful. That is a red flag, in my opinion. I'm not saying that all deals that are hot and fast are problematic, but slow down. There's usually a problem somewhere. And of course, where people are not keen on sharing information, where the person clearly has no work plan in mind and the budget is not clear, they are not even sure about the process. You don't have to be an attorney to know some of these processes. They are very simple, and they are available online. Go to the websites, you'll find them there. No rocket science behind it. But you engage in the so-called professional, not sure, it's all cagey, red flag. Know that there's a problem somewhere.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Let's have Alfred. Few questions.
Yeah, there's a question from Fred Karema asking whether land brokers have an association that gets still. Currently, land brokers are really not regulated currently. Recently, but there is a bill underway to have them, to have all real estate agents, because the land brokers sometimes call themselves real estate agents. There is a real estate bill which was currently tabled by the cabinet, led by Honorable Minister Nabakova, which really wants to regulate the real estate industry in Uganda and to have even the so-called land brokers or real estate agents regulated. They will have to be registered. It will have how they are supposed to transact, the process they are supposed to deal with, and how to comply in line with the law, and the due process, the honest dealings in their transactions. Then I saw Kazodeo quoted Mark Twain Street of buy land, they are not making it anymore. Now when it comes to really buying land, they are not making it anymore. Usually, with regards to when people having land die, and basically we have seen children or what, or relatives, the moment their father, let me say, or elder dies and there is land which is supposed to be given to them, what most of them think about is selling it as fast as they can. So in regard to that conversation, if as a person is dealing with land where it belongs to the estate, what advice would you really, what kind of ways should you undertake to avoid being duped into a fraudulent transaction? Because there was a recent judgment where at least the judge was really emphasized that dealing in an estate of buying from a estate where they are not as administration or probate, the sale or transaction is null and void.
True.
So at least for that fact, we know the first thing you have to look out for is the letters of whether they have been issued or what. But beyond that, what should really a person look out for so that it's not duped into a fraudulent transaction?
Thank you so much, Alfred. Now, I'm glad you're bringing this up. And let me quickly note that we have different scales or levels of due diligence. Well, we have the general due diligence, but if you're dealing in estate land, the due diligence required is different from if you're dealing with a company or an individual. This is what I would do as Kalikumutima Deo. Now, during one's life, they work so hard to acquire their properties. Some people actually say, I don't believe in superstition, but say that estate land is cursed. That is not to scare away anybody. I'm not saying that it is cursed, but you must be as careful as you can be. As of today, we have over 8,000 cases in the land division of Uganda. Okay?
8,000. Over 8,000, yeah. That's
Okay.
a very big figure, yes.
And out of those, I want to assure you that over 50% are as a result of land fraud. And estate land is one of the areas that has been grossly been abused. I thank God that the lawmakers and the necessary stakeholders deemed it fit to amend the Succession Act. Today, to deal in estate land, you must deal with the beneficiary. Of course, the legal representative is the administrator who acts on behalf of the estate. But these administrators do not hold this property or run it as a going concern to manage it in perpetuity. No. You distribute the estate, within 6 months, file the inventory in court, render the account, business closed. If after 2 years you have not done so, your letters are revoked. These are just key principles that I must note. So the actual person you're dealing with is the beneficiary. You get what I'm saying? The administrator is supposed to transfer to X beneficiary. X beneficiary is supposed to appear on the certificate of title. We have so many titles that are still in the names of administrators. The law has changed that. So, this is what I would do. It is an investigation, especially where the title is still registered in the name of the administrator. How did he acquire the letters of administration? How did the process go? Is this person actually dead? So I'll look for the death certificate. We have NIRA. It is responsible for issuance of death certificates and birth what? I'll check. Before NIRA, URSB was, and it was issuing the same. Their archives. We check and confirm, yes, there was a death. And of course, the record of court is there. The court that issues a grant. So you go and get the necessary copies, double check with NIRA, double check, walk backwards, double check with Administrator General if the person died intestate without leaving a will. Did the Administrator General issue a certificate of no objection? Double check all that. Now, also ascertain the beneficiaries who are in court for the identification purposes. Today, the beneficiaries are all supposed to consent, and they are supposed to appear for identification. Did they appear? Were there any contestations or objections? Because you can acquire the property, someone just got letters of administration, then tomorrow someone applies to court to revoke the grant. Or they tell you, no, we're in the process of getting letters of administration, do not worry. Someone puts a caveat in court. Then it turns into a suit. Because of the contestation, excuse me, court now has to deal with that issue and resolve it. So we have to dig up that entire process. Doing a search is not enough. You must interrogate. Look at the court file, how was the grant arrived at? And also, again, compliance. Did they file the inventory like I said? Has there been actual distribution? Am I dealing with the right what? Beneficiary. Then the rest will apply. The land search, you send the surveyor to the ground, the surveyor will interact with the local authorities, you do the same. So it is more detailed. This is not to scare you away. It is not too complex, but you must tread with the necessary caution.
Thank you so much, Council. We have a question from Donald Kai. But before we go to Donald Kai's questions, please we remind you, send in your questions. And one that came on earlier, Council, this seems to go so much with the LCs. There have been complaints about the LCs, who are, first of all, are they is it mandatory? Or is it a provision of the law that, an LC of a particular area must be present or, must be around to sanction a transfer of land before, such transfer is done? This comes from, a background where LCs are charging. Some of them will tell you, I need 10% of, the transaction fee here. I need 5%. I need 1%. Some go as high as even 20 or 30%. And they simply say that if, you're not able to give us 10% or whatever percent of this transaction, we are not sanctioning this, this transfer. This has, hindered lots of, land transactions going on in Uganda currently. And the question that, the viewer is asking is there a way he or she can, bypass all this requirement of having an LC to sanction a transfer or sign onto these documents? how should this person go about it? What happens if I don't pay? Does it mean that I cannot transfer my land? Does it mean that I cannot transact on my land if I don't pay this particular LC, of the area, the required percentage? Not actually not the required, the percentage that they want in this particular transaction. What help or what advice do you have for these people?
Well, in my village, they are very important. Now, legally, like I indicated, the LCs play a key role for due diligence purposes. But about it being a legal requirement, for an LC to sanction a transaction, for you to pay a percentage, that is unlawful, that is illegal. That is why we appeal to you to engage professionals. If you're dealing with titled land, get your attorney, they'll do the necessary due diligence. Of course, without contradicting myself, I did indicate that the LCs aid us in getting information. Please note that it is illegal if you're paying those percentages. I must quickly add that we have what we call, and this is akin to Uganda, Bibanja. This is untitled what? Land. And I'll give you an example of Uganda Kingdom, which we are honored to serve. They are our clients and Uganda Land Board. If X has a Chibanja interest and they seek to deal with it, Uganda Land Board has its process. And when you go to the sub-counties, Bami Baka Baka, they are there. They'll give you the necessary forms, and if still, as part of the due diligence, you can inquire from the LC. I know it has been a common trend, especially with Vivanja. The LC literally turns into the landlord. Because now they are taking advantage of the fact that they are the only authority that can confirm the ownership. If you must say thank you, that is at your discretion. But you paying a percentage, that is uncalled for, that is illegal, that is unlawful. Kindly take note. This is not in any way to downplay their role. I have been an LC1 chairman in a certain village.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
I did not charge anyone any percentage until I peacefully handed over power. So this is not in any way to downplay their role, but let us not assume roles that we do not have. That jurisdiction is not theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, going to the question from Mr. Donald Kaye. He says that he's giving a scenario of, a situation where about seven people acquired land through inheritance, but one of the 7 people is in possession of, the certificate of title. And seems this particular one person is not willing to hand over this particular certificate of title to the other 6 for them to share. Or, he has taken custody of this particular certificate of title on this plot of land that the 7 people inherited. Could be, from their grandfather or their father. He's asking, how does he go about, this particular situation, to have his own interest in this particular land protected without losing it to this person in possession of the certificate of title?
Now, I think this is a discussion that we have been having. This should be a state what? Land, if you say inherited. So, well, maybe I should ask, in what capacity is the brother holding it? Let's assume the brother is the administrator. Please note that it is not enough for you to be the heir. It is not. And the state must have, under law, a legal representative. That is either an administrator, administratrix, executor, executrix. Where person X dies and leaves a will, we have an executor to implement the wishes of the deceased. When they die intestate without leaving a will, you have administrator, administratrix. I did also point out that you do not run the estate as a business. You don't treat it as a going concern. Well, I will note that we have this generation of businesses that is different, and they are structured differently. They are either registered as companies or as trusts. So somehow there is what? Continuity. There is economic continuity, planned differently. But in this scenario, if X here is the administrator, whatever he's doing is illegal. Why are they holding on to the title? Did someone in the village tell them, or in the family, that they are the most trusted? Why are they holding on to it? We have already said, under the law today, as per the amendment of the Succession Act, you file that inventory, render an account. We have distributed, this is inform court. Court has given you permission. That is why it is called a grant. Court has given you permission to administer this estate, not to treat it as your personal property. So, ex-administrator is supposed to distribute. Every beneficiary of the 7 is supposed to get their share. Transfer forms are signed off, subdivisions done accordingly. Once all that process, remember, we have, after the grant has been given, they will sit in a family meeting, agree on the list of properties, distribute them, which constitutes the inventory, and it is filed. Now, once that is, you have the transfer form signed, everybody gets their what? Their share. So, if X here is the administrator, it is unfortunate that he's abusing his role. The brother should immediately move court. Petition court, actually, for revocation of letters of administration. He's abusing the grant. That is the remedy. But if it is about peace, if we are going back to the Bible and the Quran, the Holy Quran, what it says, well, they can have a meeting, get a mediator. The mediator can be someone from church or someone from the mosque. You can have an attorney. We have mediators. Some of us are mediators and arbitrators. You get competent lawyers who have double roles, or even retired judges. Someone who you all understand as a family, to guide you through peacefully. But the immediate remedy, it is clear there has been an abuse of the grant, is to have it revoked, so that this estate is managed better.
To have for this person, I think she's one of our viewers from the diaspora.
This question is meant for Alfred, but before he answers, I have a question.
Yes.
How does the paperwork look like? Did they acquire this property together?
No, it's she has not stated that.
But so it's living. It's so much of a hypothetical.
Yes.
No, they are not legally married. That is clear. But did they acquire this property together? If they did, is there paperwork? That makes it easier, because even if they are not married, okay, even if it's cohabiting, if they acquired this property together, and there's paperwork to that effect, there's remedy. There is remedy. She can sue to recover part of her land. Or through the suit, they can agree to dispose and share the proceeds. Yes. And if he has decided to assume the whole property as if it were his, or as if it is his, that is also criminal. That amounts to theft. You're appropriating with the intention to permanently deprive. Fine, you have part interest, but it doesn't mean that you own it entirely. So she has remedy both in civil and criminal. She can take both actions, but it needs further clarity. Let's assume that they acquired the property jointly and there is paperwork. Like I have said, there's remedy. Now, if there is no paperwork, or actually the worst case scenario is if the property out of love, things people do for love. Anyway, if the property was acquired in one name, the man's name,
Yes.
they are not legally married. And there is no proof that in the very least, she could have paid for the property, though the agreement is in his name, but there is proof that money left her account and was for the transaction, which also needs to be corroborated by a witness, confirmed. You see, it's really hypothetical. If all that is missing, she's in a precarious what? Situation. However, the other question is, who's in possession? You see, for every land matter or land situation, the issue of possession is key. That's why these land grabbers will always move quickly to dispossess you. So if she's in possession, she has an upper what? Let's assume both of them are not in what? In possession. She needs to quickly take possession. Even if there is a tenant, that is one of the ways of taking possession. You develop the property and you put a tenant there. Then she has to take charge. Start collecting what? She must find a way of asserting herself. Like I said, we are dealing with a hypothetical.
Yes.
So I think, as Councillor said, this question is a bit hypothetical. We would encourage the lady to reach out to us or a lawyer with paperwork for better advice, because this scenario is hypothetical. But because of advising, it talks about the issue of when transacting, the modes of payment. We have really emphasized whenever buying land to pay using the bank, whereby you have a trail of transactions to show at a later stage, instead of paying cash or what, at least you pay whereby there's paperwork to reflect the payment, so the money which was paid. So at a later stage, even if you have a document where you are not party to that agreement somehow, but you really transferred money to him or her, sorry, to the other individual to buy the land, you use that as evidence.
Thank you so much, Alfred, for that. Emphasis always when buying land, pay through the bank to leave a record of payment. You never know what happens, as time goes by. We have a question from Babazi Chantal, and the question she's basically seeking for numbers or data on the following. One, multiple land title deeds registered to different people for the same parcel of land. How many cases have been tried in courts of law following reported cases of multiple land titles to the same piece of land? I think this, goes back to the fraud that Alfred and Councillor Day were earlier on alluding to, of, someone multiple titling on the same piece of land. Councillor, I don't know, being a land expert, someone who has, handled these cases, since time immemorial, could you be having statistics or data in this regard to how many have been, tried and successfully, judgments entered, in courts of law?
I think that question has been posed by an academician or someone who's writing a paper.
It's actually, I think, your good friend, Babazi Chantel.
Yes. Now, I'm a commercial practitioner. This is a commercial practice. And our area, we handle civil litigation. Yes. I did give the statistic of land division, and I will re-echo it. It is over 8,000 cases. To be precise, I actually noted it down somewhere. It should be 8,420 cases by 30th September. Now, this information is available on the Ministry of Justice website. It is readily available, but that is the statistic that I can confirm to you as a commercial practitioner, as someone who goes to the High Court of Uganda Land Division. We have over 8,000 cases there, and I did note that over 50% of those cases are connected to land fraud. Now, I did indicate that we are going to have series. We shall have, the recap actually ends today, and I think we are almost done, unless we have many more questions. So the recap ends today. In the other series or the other segments, we shall be inviting. We shall invite our colleagues from the DPP. We shall invite our colleagues from the judiciary. We shall invite our colleagues from Ministry of Lands. Unfortunately, one of them was supposed to log in. I think they have been unable to. Of course, for most of these apparatus, because of the bureaucracies apparent, you have to write and get necessary clearances. We are going to start the process early. Maybe some of these questions will be better answered by them, but at least I've given my statistic that I'm sure about, and this can be confirmed. Um, we don't do so much of criminal litigation. That is not our specialty here as a firm, but we shall politely refer you to the website of DPP. I'm sure this statistic is available there, or the Uganda police. However, like I said, in the next series, we shall have our colleagues join us, and we will ensure that they answer or give more detail to the other part, the criminal part. Maybe I'll also talk about the role of lawyers in land fraud, though the question has not been asked. Of course, lawyers play a key part in managing or mitigating land fraud through advocacy or representation. But I must also note that we have lawyers who are fraudulent. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Uganda Law Society. And I also did point out that we have lawyers who hold out. So you need to be careful who you're dealing with. Fortunately for us, we have a fallback position. There's law counsel that handles our ethical and professional conduct, which works closely, of course, with the Uganda Law Society. Then competent law firms. I'm not saying the firms that don't have professional indemnity are not competent. No. More deliberate, I beg your pardon, more deliberate law firms have the professional indemnity, which gives you that additional cover, generally speaking. Now, as attorneys who are interested in justice, attorneys offer advocacy and representation in court, at police. If you intend to pursue, now like land fraud, you can pursue it criminal and civil. So lawyers have a role they play too. I cannot give a statistic or a figure for criminal, but I can say that the over 80,000 cases I alluded to, most, if not all, are being litigated by attorneys, by advocates, by lawyers. Thank you.
Maybe, you see, just for the benefit of others, when you look at this question, I was looking at where multiple land title deeds to the same parcel of land. So basically, legally, that's what we call double titling. Could you maybe chip in to really tell us what causes double titling? How does it come to arise?
Under the law, to be precise, Section 64 of the Registration of Titles Act, the interest of a registered proprietor is paramount. Yeah? But you see, this interest can only be, you can own multiple pieces of land, no problem, but each piece of land should have one title. And to be more precise, you cannot have competing interests on the same piece. I'll give you an example. A Milo title is a permanent interest in land. A freehold title is a permanent interest in land. Freehold interest, Milo interest. These are competing. They cannot coexist. Well, you can have a lease out of Milo and a lease out of freehold, the right way. Because we also have areas of abuse where land is owned by an authority. We have authorities in Uganda that own land, Uganda Investment Authority, National Forest Authority. These areas, for example, Uganda Investment Authority, these areas are gazetted by law for industrial parks, business parks, like the one in Namave. Now, you cannot go to Namave and claim to have a lease from Mukono District Land Board, yet that is a gazetted industrial park. It is only Uganda Investment Authority that can give you a lease there. Now, neither can you have another freehold title over the same. The law is settled, it is very clear. Under the Constitution, under the Land Act Section 59, a controlling authority cannot allocate land that is managed or owned by another person or another entity. Now, where we have double titling is where you have the same piece of land or person having two competing interests or unclear interests over the same what? Piece of land. This is another area that touches land fraud, we have had a lot of abuse in this area. Fortunately, in the future, Ministry of Lands will be with us to elaborate. And the minister was in Dallas, and Mr. Lenin, they did touch these issues, what they have done. The system was developed, they digitized. This is supposed to iron out all issues of what? Of double titling. Next, I think there will be digitizing their survey register. We also have, survey has been an area that has greatly been abused by these what? Fraudsters, where you have desk surveys being done. All these, I believe, the future is bright.
So, just summarizing the purpose of double titling. So where with double titling, usually the first title, which was it should take precedence. So the second title, which was later got, will be cancelled. So in case you have your land and you have it over the same land which you got like 2009, and then you find out later on in 2010 another person got it over the same piece of land. So that person which was later got will be cancelled by code in that regard.
It's more of first come, first serve.
I thought the questions are done. It's
No.
Friday. We need to wind up.
We have a hand before that. We have a hand from Babazi Chantal. Babazi, you could unmute and ask the question.
Yes, we can.
A minute, please. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Council Dale and your fellow councils, thank you so much for hosting this session. And as UNAA, we are grateful for this partnership and thank you for always bringing services closer to our members. I know I did post a few of one of the questions that was sent from our member. I know I couldn't post the whole question, but I think Mr. Kalikuti might have that whole question from that one member. And I did receive another question from one member, but I also see that you might have omitted one question from the chat from Fred Kalema Msoke. I wish if you could just run through this question is about land brokers. So if you could please highlight more on that question. And then also, I think I'll just forward you other questions in your email, and as you give me feedback, I would gladly share it with our membership. Again, we thank you so much. I see Mr. Serko Elvis, our treasurer, is here with us today. And thank you everyone that has tuned in to this great session. Thank you.
Thank you to Babazi Chantal. We too appreciate, the great partnership, and we pledge to perform more, with you as we go on. Regarding the question from Mr. Kalema Musoke, I think Council Dale earlier on answered that, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Alfred.
Let me just rephrase it to him so that he can also add on my voice. He was was asking, do the land brokers have an association that vets them? That's what he asked. And Adalia guided that currently they are not regulated, but there is a real estate bill which was recently presented in Parliament by the Honourable Minister Nabakov and her cabinet, which is going to regulate real estate business in Uganda, and even land brokers will be captured in that bill. The Council Dale could be heard on that.
Thank you, Alfred, and thank you so much, Owechitiibwa Fred Kalema, who also happens to be our client. And thank you, Chantal. We welcome the other questions. Even when we are done, we shall respond. Now, in specific regard to this question, no, we do not have regulation of the brokers yet, but we believe, like Alfred said, with the real estate bill becoming law, among others, the brokers too will be regulated. I'm aware that brokers in Uganda have an association. They do. but that association does not amount to regulation. We are yet to have a statute, an act of parliament, a law regulating them. I believe with this, we'll have more streamlined procedures and processes as far as brokers are concerned. This is another avenue of abuse that has really escalated land fraud. I actually don't like being called a land expert or consultant. I would rather I'm called an advocate or an attorney. It is enough for me because today, almost everyone in Uganda is a land consultant, an expert. The title has lost meaning. Everyone, you go to forums, someone say, for me, I deal in land, I'm a broker, and they are misinforming people. It is very unsettling. So we believe with this regulation, a lot is going to get better. We hope it canvasses the emerging trends. You know, usually you have a legislation come up, and a few days down the road there are proposals for amendment. We believe with the necessary consultations, it will be a concrete law. That is our response to that. I do not know whether we have more questions, but the UNAA family, we love you so much. We have this team and the supporting cast all at your service. We appreciate the partnership that we have with you. We are looking forward to more fruitful years working with you and more interactive sessions. Like I said, it's going to be a series. I don't know whether we're going to have one this year. We'll be letting you know accordingly. Like I pointed out at the beginning, it is our mission to fill the information gap. We are not being paid for this, but it is our duty to make sure we give you the information, and we are not going to ask you to pay us in return. No, we are going to give you the information. How you use it is at your discretion. At least have another excuse. Do not say you did not know. Thank you. I hope the questions are almost done.
Actually,
Maxwell, I'm very keen on getting out of here. Yes, we all know why.
it's a Friday.
I have done my part, at least what you pay me for. I have done. Do we have any more questions?
We don't have any more questions in our chat. So, Alfred, to you, your parting shots before we come to Council Deo and we close the show.
Yeah, I think just thank everyone who have joined us and my fellow panelists and Council Deo who have hosted. And yeah, as Council has said, we are here to fill the information gap. You know, ignorance of the law is not a defense. That's when it comes to no matters. And even when it comes now to land transactions or whatever, you don't want to be duped because you didn't know what to do and didn't know what to avoid being duped into a land transaction and you lose your money for no good reason. So, as regards the information gap, that one's going to be given to you. You can follow our social media handles. There's always information on land matters, the Twitter, Kalikumitima, Facebook, LinkedIn, so that at least you have the information that by the time you transact, you have the basic information to transact. And if you are to really reach out to beside professionals, you can really reach out to us, the surveyors, or for any kind of help you really want. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Alfred. Over to you, Council Deo, the guest of honor for today.
Well, you're not going to see me in a long time. I would like to thank the UNAA team once again for making this possible. First, the partnership, the invitations we have had over the years. We believe it will get better over time. You usually have hundreds of people crying about land matters, but you have forums like this, you get only a handful. But we will not stop. We'll keep reaching out, giving out the information. And in any case, this information is not just for people in the diaspora. It is also for the ordinary Ugandan out there. The information is also available on our handles. Let us operate or deal with the necessary caution. To the firm, Kalikum team and company advocates, to the team here, Alfred and Maxwell, thank you so much. Have yourselves a blessed evening and weekend here in Uganda and over there. Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alfred. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalikumutima Deo. And from me, your host, the main host, I was assisted by Alfred, who later on turned into a panelist, but really, no issue regarding that. I thank you for tuning in, I thank you for logging in, and I thank you for staying with us till now. We really appreciate, you taking off your time, your precious time, to pick this information. And as you know, the panelists have stated, we shall not get tired of passing this information out to you. This is our duty. We are called to do this, and we are here to serve you. For more information, please don't forget also to follow us on X, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us, on Instagram, and all those other social media platforms. We thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time, please have a good evening and have a good day wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kalikumuntima and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality. For more information, visit our website www.kalikumuntima.com.